Okay, looks like we're live. Hey, everybody, it's Jay.
Hey guys, it's Monica.
And today we have a very special guest with us. We have Ray Cash Care, who is I guess, former slash ex U.S. Navy SEAL until they call him in again and activate him.
Hoorah!
Dr. Osborne and Dr. Farber are definitely going to be calling up. They're going to be a little bit late, though, today. Um, I guess I'll turn it over to Scott real quick, and I'll let him narrate. We got a bunch of really cool topics we're going to talk about today, and then as usual on the show format, we will try to break off into a question and answer session for the doc. As always, we have a lot of questions, so let's get going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like Dr. Farber just jumped on, so that's cool.
Hey Doc. No, that's just his model,
he's
his
there.
model
His
pic.
mug.
Hey, Leonard, what's up, buddy? Hello.
Yeah, his mic isn't working. He'll figure it out.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, let's just jump in, man. I mean, I know the first thing was that we're going to talk about was mindset and how to attain the body and health you desire. And I think this is something that Monica and Ray can really speak to because it's what they're heavily involved in. So Ray, why don't you maybe start off on some of the things that I don't know, some of the teachings, man. I mean, just kind of go into it on what people need to, what mind frame they need to be in to really maintain and stay consistent with their body, their health, eating, all that.
Okay, I'll jump right in. So, myself and Monica have two different approaches at mindset, but I think what's so great about it is the end result is the same. I take a much more aggressive approach. First thing I always like to say is failure is not an option. That's the first thing you have to get. The mindset starts with the mental attitude. You have to start right off the bat and say, hey, I'm not going to fail no matter what I do. And there's a lot of intricate parts with that, mindset. Mindset is something that I want to make very clear. You do not develop overnight. It takes years and years of practice, I work with doctors, I work with Jay. We didn't get where we are by just picking up a pencil or signing a piece of paper and say, hey, I'm a Navy SEAL or I'm a doctor. We put the time and effort into it. So with that being said, one of the approaches that I like to use, the first thing that I do is with mindset is I like to set obtainable goals. And this is what I tell people. Setting goals is like investing in the future. You have to have a short-term, middle-term, and long-term plan. Okay? First thing I did when I was 20 years old and I had to start investing, someone told me that, and I was like, what the heck does that mean? You have to have a 6-month plan, you have to have a 2-year plan, you have to have a 10-year plan. That's how I look at it. So what I try to do with my short-term plan, I've changed it around. I make daily goals. Daily goals, I want to say that again. Little things. How can I be a better me? And I know Monica has her approaches with that, but I want to be the best person I can every day. Okay, and I said the goals that you make, they have to be something that you can reach. You're not going to reach every goal, so get that into your mind right away. I try to set up 5 to 7 goals daily of what I want to do, how I want to be a better person, how I want to be a positive role model. And that only occurs by doing a couple things. And Monica agrees with me with this. Is I have a journal, and we talked about this before. I write in a journal before I go to bed every night of everything that I've done, good and bad, how I can better myself, and what I'm going to do tomorrow to be better than I was today. And the SEAL teams, we have a saying, and it's the best saying on the planet. The only easy day was yesterday. So what the hell does that mean? It means that you have to mentally fight through every day of your life to obtain what you want, whether it's wealth, health, family life, trying to get that promotion, anything that you want to do, you have to set a goal. You don't just go and it just happens. All those goals are not going to happen. So what we have to do is we have to train our mind to be ready, to be flexible, to change according to the situation. And something that I do, one of the training techniques that I use, is when situations get bad, I try to find the humor in something. Now, I'm not talking about combat. I'm not talking about, You know, when I went through Hell Week and I was up for 5 days with, you know, 3.5 hours of sleep, if that, maybe actually 45 minutes of sleep. I'm not supposed to say that. But what I do is you guys have heard the terminology, you have to roll with the punches. Well, mindset is exactly that. You know, you have to stimulate the mind, you have to read, you have to educate, you know. Doc and Jay and these guys have been having me read and study and learn, and you know, every night I'm just like a sponge and I'm absorbing it. You know, the knowledge that these guys have is amazing. So what I'm doing now is I'm trying to go from taking the physical aspects, so how I incorporate mental fortitude or the warrior mindset is repetition. Okay, so think about driving a car. You do it, you know, if you're my age, in your 40s, you've driven a car 12,000 times. It's repetition. You want to do the same thing with your mind. You know, every morning when I get up, I say failure is not an option. Every night before I go to bed, I say the same darn thing. Okay? I do mental drills during the day. I will assess myself during the day. If I see myself having negative energy, I try to stop what I'm doing. I assess the situation and say, hey, how can I fix this? So think of the mind and your body, obviously it's an energy. And then how I've gotten through life is I think of myself as one big funnel. I'm a funnel. And what I do is I pour all the negativity and everything into the funnel. And what happens at the end of that funnel is you have a strainer. And those little screens or strainers, what's going to happen is I only let the positive go through. And people go, how do you do that? Because I learned how to disassociate the good with the bad. And it takes years of doing that, you know. I turn stress into success. People need to learn how to take the bad and channel it into good. What people do mentally is they get this overload of negativity and they can't handle it. I say no. That's where you have to slow down and you have to stop and literally have the mental fortitude to go, okay, this, and this has been presented in front of me. And I have a saying, and I know Jay and Doc and everybody on here know it. I tell people, figure it out. So what that means is like playing a game of chess. Don't make excuses, make solutions. So if you're thrown a curveball in life, stop, reassess, breathe. You have to breathe and figure out a way to get around it. You know, you can't run through every wall. Sometimes you have to go over it. You have to dig a hole under it. There's a lot of different ways. And the only way that I stimulate my mind doing that, or what's worked for me, has been putting myself in stressful situations, sleep deprivation. I've taken the elements of Mother Nature. I know Jay and Doc and them, especially Doc, can vouch for me with that, where we will keep you up for extended periods of times, and your body and your mind will go through different cycles. And then what I do on top of that is you incorporate not getting enough nutrition, and then I incorporate being cold as hell. And then what has to happen is everything that you do slows down, and you have to assess. And then if you can get yourself through that type of situation, regular day-to-day life issues are much, much easier. Monica, can you add anything to that, man?
That was pretty awesome, by the way. Go ahead.
Real quick, before we jump to Monica, hold on. Ray, I got a question for you. How important is it with being self-aware and being able to step back and evaluate where you're at and situations you're in? Because I feel like a lot of people, that's a lot of the issue, is that they're not at that, their mindset or mind or their capability essentially to step back and be self-aware. So how do you train that, and how do you help someone do that?
Well, with me, the key was logging everything I did. When I first started doing this, like when I was training to become a SEAL, people used to laugh at me, but I took a notebook with me everywhere I went. I know, the docs carry their journals and their logs and all their stuff. I carried a thing, and whatever I did, I wrote it down. If I did 12 pull-ups, I wrote how I felt after it. If I had to do anything, I had like books and books and books. And how I learned to do it is whenever I was feeling an emotion, or I was pissed off, or I was tired, or I was hungry, I literally had dates and times of things that I don't want to say that were traumatic, but were things that made me stop and write this down. And I went back and I said, okay, during this time I felt like this. This was the end result. And then what I did is underneath each one of those lines, just like I said, that was a problem, or what I like to call, I hate the word problem. I like it was an excuse. If I felt tired for doing something, and I looked at it and I thought about it, I was like, okay, I ran 3 miles. What did I eat that morning? Did I not have enough to eat? Was my nutrition not covered? And what I did was I built, think of a house. What I did was I built a foundation around looking at my notes and bettering myself. And this was just to train to go to Buds. I did this for 3 years, and people laughed at me all the time about doing this. But the problem was I could not retain all the information and everything that I was going through. I was training in the cold water. They were trying to do math problems with me. So as soon as I get out of the water and I'd be able to think, and get my wits about me, I was writing down what I was going through, what I was experiencing, especially with the cold elements. Because guess what? I marked that book, Cold Weather, and when I went to Buds about a year later, I took that book with me when I knew I had to go to Hell Week and we had to get into cold water. So I knew what to expect. I knew that if I stayed up for 3 or 4 days, I'd start hallucinating. I know that my emotions would change. I'd go from being hysterically happy to a teenage schoolgirl that was crying, and then, like I said, the next level for me was actually hallucinating. And I was prepared. I was prepared for the battle. And what I've learned to do, and what I try to do in my teachings, is I try to take those lessons that I've learned both on and off the battlefield, and what I do is I transform them into everyday life. And because my key is be a better you, be successful in everything you do. And we're going to turn that stress, because let's face it, if somebody tells me in their life they have no stress, it's a bunch of BS. Whether you're a gazillionaire or you're the guy that's struggling to do something, everybody has stress. It's a commonality that everybody has on the planet. So what I try to do is take something that I know that everybody has, and I've learned, I'm still honing in and harnessing it, because it's a living, breathing organism, and it's work in progress every day. Anybody that tells you they've mastered it is a bunch of baloney. I'm always learning. It's like being married to my wife. I learn something every day from her. So what I do, speaking of the devil, is I take the notes and I constantly learn from my mistakes. And that's what I'm trying to teach everybody to do, is take these notes, log what you're doing, become a better you. And you know what? At the end of every night, I read what I've done, and when I get up in the morning, and it takes 2 seconds. It takes 2 seconds, guys. We're writing some stuff right now, and I tell you, if you don't have 5 minutes in your day to do something, no, I don't believe it. I've passed some of this stuff on to some of my colleagues, and they believe in it. And I mean, they have much busier lives than me. Operating on people and doing stuff that's way above my skill set, but it works. And I'm telling you that if you stick to this plan and you really put your head down and you get that pen in your hand and you write down these notes, or we've got these things nowadays called iPhones, and you can type everything in the world to them, or you can even talk to the damn things and it'll do it for you. Look at what you've logged, learn from your lessons, and be a better you. It's that simple.
That's awesome. Hey, Scott, real quick, thanks, Ray. I'm going to let Monica jump in and offer her stuff. Hey, Leonard. Hey, Brett. How are you guys?
Jay, I'm jumping in here because I'm sort of at the edge of my seat. And Ray, good to meet you. I'm the other doc. There are 2 points here that I think are worth sort of reiterating, and it follows from Scott's question. And the first one about self-awareness is really the key, not just to what we're talking about here, but to everything in life. So we have to be aware of what we're doing. And I find that one of the critical ways in doing so is to actually stop and ask yourself the question, how do I feel? What Ray was doing was a way to actually ask the question by forcing himself to write down how he feels. Right. If you don't carry that journal, or in the middle of the day or in the middle of your workout, you want to know if you're present, you ask a question. That's a key component because scientifically, when we start to ask questions in our mind, we start triggering familiarity pathways that will force us to then think about how we feel. And in doing so, we start to recall memories, we start to evoke emotions. So there is a scientific merit. So it's not just a rote thing. There are reasons that the SEALs do what they do. There are reasons that physicians do what we do. What everybody does with ingrained training has some kind of basis behind that. And so what Ray was doing was forcing his brain to ask the question. In doing so, you always get an answer. Look, it may not be the answer you want at the time, but it certainly makes you aware. So if you are going through your day and you want to know, or you're going through your workout, if you're going through the routines and you stop and you say, how am I feeling? You're going to know. You're going to immediately say, oh shit, I'm going through the motions. I am not in tune with what I'm doing. And then you need to ask the question, how do I fix that? And the answer is definitely within you. I think that the people who are tuning in want to know more. They want to do more. And they don't always know the how. And the how first is by asking the question of what you're doing. And I agree wholeheartedly with Ray. There isn't a single human being on the planet that cannot find the time to do what they need to do. This is a matter of priority. You set your goals, and if you want to achieve them, you do what you do. There are solutions to problems. I do this with my office, with my daughter. You can complain. I'm not going to solve your problem. Come to me with the complaint and the solution you then came up with, because otherwise you're just whining.
Yeah.
Right.
You can learn that.
That magnifies the problem. Complaining just magnifies the problem. There's no solution that's provided with it if you're just
complaining. If you come up with the solution, you then get a sense of achievement and you feel good about what you've done. Nobody wants to hear the whining, you know.
No. I think the whining actually seeps the power from you rather than empower you.
Well, yeah, when you come up with a solution or you get through a tough workout, or I can't even imagine getting through that weekend with you guys, you come out empowered. It doesn't matter how you fared. By doing something and achieving something, you get to the next level. There are emotional states, and you do it.
Yeah.
You want to add your spin on mindset real quick?
Well, what I was going to say, what I wanted to add, if you guys don't mind, is that essentially what I've noticed over the years is that many of us act on default. You know, we feel something, we react. We feel something, we react. And in order for us to truly find who we are and what we want in life, then it's important to actually consciously create who that is and how we're going to react. Like Ray said, we're all going to have challenges in our life. We're all going to have stress. You know, I've come to a point in my life where when something occurs, I'm like, you know what, there's something better and bigger beyond this. I'm so excited to find out what it is, because it's all about perspective. So when you have a goal in mind, let's say, you know, you're overweight, you're over 100 pounds overweight, if you keep thinking, oh my God, this is so hard, this is so hard, this is so hard, then of course you're focusing on it being hard. You're going to get what you're focusing on. So if you truly want to be healthier, what is it going to take? Who do I need to be in the process? What kind of person makes these kind of choices? And then you step into that person and you be that person that you so desire to be. You make healthier choices. You react in certain ways. If you want to be more empowered, what is it? How is it that you can do that? You can read, you can connect with yourself, you can meditate. I meditate. There's so many things that we can do as individuals. I mean, think about it. I mean, our brains are so powerful, our minds are so powerful, and yet we only tap into a small portion of who we truly are. And if we can actually be that great, you know, person inside of us, think about what you can create. There's so much in there. So, I mean, I could go on and on, so I don't want to go on and on, but I just, my whole spin on it is, like the person, whoever it is, all you have to do is tap into who that person you want to be and be that person. Make those choices. Create that life. And it comes down to what I've noticed is gratefulness. Be grateful for where you're at. Be grateful for the experiences you're having, whatever it is. Contrast, challenge. Without those, we don't grow. We don't grow without challenges in life. And believe me, I have a ton of challenges. We all do. Who are you going to be through the process?
I took her. I took her.
So, question to all of you guys, I guess, along the same line, is how important it is to understand that when things do happen negatively, that dwelling on them.
Hey, we have to make a pause. Look at.
All right, I'm gonna pause before my question.
Hi, McKenna. Hey, cutie.
See?
Hello.
Okay.
Hi.
So, Scott, that's a great question, though. Continue, because I want to answer that, but go ahead.
Well,
Yes, I was just saying. I was just saying, how important is it when negative things happen to be aware enough to understand that you can't change what just happened. So dwelling on it and complaining about it and moping about it for God knows how long, just is pointless. And that all you can do is learn from what happened and potentially change it from happening again in the future or making a difference in the future, right?
Scott, let me just say this, guys, real quick. I was that guy. Okay, my whole life until I met Monica Diaz, I was the guy who would belabor whatever befell me or whatever had befallen me for the 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whether it was business, whether it was personal, whatever it was. I would be that guy. I would be like worrying about, And Monica's taught me, and it's so true, and it resonates with all of us, and it just goes back to the law of attraction. And I don't want to get all like, new age voodoo stuff, but when you let it go. And you truly let it go, something bigger and better will come behind it. But you have to have a mindset of, you know what, this doesn't mean shit, okay? Whatever happened to me, whatever I suffered, whoever, denigrated me or did something to me in my life, it's just, it's the past. It's not now. It doesn't control your future. And Scott, I think it's easier said than done, but I think that your question's amazing because that was me. And I think so many people live in that conscious mindset of, I'm worried about what just happened to me, and I can't let it go because if I let it go, it's going to happen to me again when it's absolutely not the truth.
Right. Honestly, acceptance is key. When you can truly accept the way a circumstance is as opposed to fighting, I mean, think about it. What you resist persists. If you're going to continue to resist whatever's occurring in your life, it's going to continually persist. Once you can let go, accept these are the circumstances, and then you breathe through it, because remember, your breathing's a barometer for the way you feel. If you're going to have fast, shallow breathing, you're going to feel differently. If you're calm, you can control your breathing, then you're going to feel different. And those are key to the way you feel. So acceptance of whatever it is in your life, whether it's the challenge, we went through divorces, whether your business is suffering, whatever it is, you go, okay, so this is happening. Okay. Now, what's next? Yeah, let's change it, And so acceptance is crucial in my opinion. I don't know, Ray, if you want to piggyback on that.
Yeah. And speaking of which, the family's coming in.
Everyone's got their family.
Everybody's bringing the kids in. Here's my family. And here's my beautiful wife, Tricia.
Hi, beautiful wife, Tricia.
Hi, nice to meet you guys.
We're all hanging out.
Yeah. Here's the motto in our house, and I think this is key. Just like you said, dwelling on things is really not, sometimes to a point. Like I don't fail. I have lessons learned. That's how I chalk it up. I take a negative and turn it into a positive. Okay, so maybe I didn't get that, and I'm using small terms here. Maybe I didn't get that rep that I wanted, or I didn't get the job that I wanted, or I didn't get something that I wanted. Instead of dwelling on it and kicking myself in the you-know-what with all the kids here and putting my head down, which is a sign of failure, what I do is I say, okay, let me chalk that up as a lesson learned, and how can I make sure that this never happens again? And I think that's the mental attitude that pretty much everybody on this phone or this conversation has. I think we all approach it different.
Dr. Osborne, would you like to say something? We're saving the last word.
No. I what do you call it? I agree with all the insights and wisdoms that, and we'll save my comments for a later question.
Okay. I'm
gonna jump in for Brett because I'm gonna tune out soon. But so I had my daughter come in because
where is she?
I want to meet her. She's a superstar. Hey, you know what? I think she should express some mindset because this girl right here is a superstar
Olympic caliber skater.
I'm telling you, she's got what it takes.
She can tell you what we do every morning, which touches upon what Monica said. What do we do on the way to the skating rink at 5 a.m.?
Grateful list.
Yeah. And what do? We go around in circles and we say what?
I'm grateful for something.
Yeah. All we do is say what we're grateful for. And I preface it every morning because I feel like I'm in like a cheesy Saturday Night Live skit. And I say, no, it sounds hokey, but when we are done, okay, we are like, we're fired up, and it's a great way to get rid of negativity. And I was that guy too. You know, I was basically Jay with a little more hair.
Not you, Dr. Farber.
Even me. And my wife will attest to it.
Why don't you shave your head, by the way?
Come on, you gotta join the crew here.
Good hair, though, you know. So the really challenging part is what happens when we're negative, and we tend to wallow in it. It's very hard to get out of it. So first and foremost, we don't beat ourselves up about it. We have to accept, okay, this is where I'm at. And then in keeping along the lines of what everybody said, it's not a failure. It's
downstairs.
Okay, bye. It's
She's got the mic. This is boring.
She's like, dude.
This is boring.
Dude, get on with your
overcome it and succeed.
Okay, Dad.
Right. So how do we do it? I think by being grateful shifts us. We may not know why. We, I certainly have insights into endorphin release. Right. There are biochemical changes in the brain, but the reality is it works. So Scott, how do you do it when you feel down? Start by being grateful. Come up. I do this all the time. I come up with lists. It could be as basic as the air we breathe. Sometimes my daughter says, oh, our new puppy. It doesn't really matter what you're grateful for, but it definitely is a mind shift. And then you go and you do your challenges.
Hey, Dr. Farber, when my daughter was younger, and actually we started doing it again recently, it was interesting because I would feel down or I would feel challenged. I was building, my business, and there was different things going on, and I'd say, let's hold hands and look each other in the eye, and we would jump up and down and go, I'm so excited, and then we would stop and we would just laugh, and the state would completely change, and it was an amazing experience for both of us. So now when she's upset, she goes, Mom, can we do I'm so excited? And we do it, and then we both shift and change.
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's funny that we're talking about this stuff, and probably there'll be some people that'll watch this or maybe even listening now, and they think it's kind of new age mumbo jumbo. But the truth is you already hit it on the head, Dr. Farber, in that there is scientific basis behind this, right? The basis of state change. You're changing your encalphins, you're changing your endorphins, you're changing a lot of different type of like brain chemistry and signaling, and when you can force a negative mindset, or having it when you're in a negative mindset to be in a positive mindset for whatever silly thing you do to get yourself, that will create a biochemical cascade or response in the body that make you or put you in a better state. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I think it's important to just pay attention to how you feel, and sometimes if we label things like negative or positive, that's harder to get through. So sometimes I think if you're just not feeling you, like there's something going on inside of you, you're at the gym, you're going like, crap, what's going on? I'm not feeling it. I'm just not feeling it today. Then just realize that you're just off and do something that's going to change your state. And it could be anything from putting on some music. Music is great for us. We'll put on music and we dance around, act silly. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do to create a state change. So I think that sometimes if you just focus on the way you feel, how am I doing right now, and then you can shift that. And sometimes even while you're training, if you just train more intensely, that'll shift you as well.
It really is learning how to change your state. There's a lot of really good guys. James Altucher has written some amazing stuff about state change. I look at him. I love his writings and his work. He has an awesome blog, the Altucher blog. But I think that's probably a good enough on mindset. Scott, can we jump in and then we'll let the doctors talk a little bit more, and then you can jump off when you need to jump off, Leonard. But I think the next question is essential fatty acids and the role they play in a proper diet. Is that correct, Scott?
Yeah, essential fatty acids and what you really need to know about it, how they play in a role in health. Go
ahead, Dr. Osborne. What is your thoughts on that?
Right. So, my big sort of one of the things that I stress with my patients in the context of basically every type of disease, because all these diseases have an inflammatory component to them. I talk a lot to them about the omega-3 fatty acids, which you guys have heard me, ad nauseum discuss both in seminars and in person. And these are things that I bring to my patients as well. The omega-3s in particular are integrated into our cell membranes, so the membranes that surround our cells, as are the omega-6. Now, from the omega-3s, we generate what are called eicosanoids, and the eicosanoids are these basically signaling molecules which are either inflammatory, if you're going to group them, or anti-inflammatory. From the omega-3s, we generate eicosanoids which are anti-inflammatory in nature. So when the cell wall sees a stimulus, be it exercise, be it toxin, be it signals from an infectious etiology, bacteria, etc., that's in the bloodstream, there are molecular changes within the cell wall itself, and these fatty acids, be it omega-3 or omega-6, depending upon what you eat and what is predominant within that cell wall, there are these molecular changes, and various chemicals are generated from either omega-3s or omega-6 in the event of an inflammatory, the necessity for an inflammatory response, such as bacterial. The cell senses that there is a bacterial pathogen within the bloodstream. We're going to mount an inflammatory response, which is going to evoke killing of the bacterial invader, and this is one of the ways that our body protects itself. So in that case, the stimulus drives this inflammatory response and allows us to mount a defense mechanism against these bacterial invaders. So in that case, we are it's very, very important that we have omega-6 fatty acids within our cells. So some people will tell you don't eat anything with omega-6. Well, that's not true. It's just the problem is that in the American diet is laden with omega-6 fatty acids, and our cell walls, therefore, are composed very, very heavily of omega-6 fatty acids. And if you have a lot of omega-6 within the cell wall, as opposed to omega-3, which serve anti-inflammatory effects, in other words, they squelch bodily inflammation, we're going to have in response to any type of stimulus, we're going to have furthered inflammation in the body, and when there's more inflammation in the body, there's more degenerative disease, and all these diseases are both inflammatory in nature and degenerative in nature. So Alzheimer's disease, cancer, diabetes, atherosclerotic heart disease, cerebrovascular diseases are all inflammatory diseases. So the goal is to literally flood your body with omega-3s, which serve the cleavage products of which are anti-inflammatory in nature. So when the cell senses some sort of stimulus, the majority of the fatty acids that are within your cell walls, okay, are going to be cleaved to these anti-inflammatory eicosanoids, and they have all sorts of fancy names, blah, blah, blah. It's not important. If you could take home one thing, it would be eat predominantly omega-3s from fish, as an example, or take fish oil, omega-3 fatty acid supplements, and limit the amount of omega-6 that's in your diet. Vegetable oils, arachidonic acid, et cetera, et cetera. French fries, okay, these things are all processed foods. These things are all laden with omega-6 fatty acids. So as I talk about in my lecture, you really are what you eat. If you eat a lot of omega-6, okay, your body is going to be more leaning towards an inflamed state. You're going to be more predisposed to degenerative diseases, such as the aging process itself. You're going to have accelerated aging, okay? The more omega-3s you eat, okay, and you really can't overdose on these things, otherwise all the Eskimos, would be dead because they eat a lot of fish, as you know. You really can't overdose on these things, and bodybuilders will have 10 grams of omega-3s a day, 15 grams of omega-3s a day. It's absolutely no problem, okay? It has lipid-lowering effects as well. It's going to lower your triglyceride levels if you flood your body with omega-3s, in addition to providing a very, very potent anti-inflammatory effect. So as an example, when patients come to my office and they have degenerative diseases of the spine, as an example, and they're complaining of leg or arm pain, neck pain, back pain, whatever it is, I will, in addition to putting them on a pharmaceutical-grade anti-inflammatory on a standing basis, I will tell them that they need to flood their bodies with omega-3s, and I can't tell you how many times I've written on a prescription the brand of omega-3 that I happen to use, just because per capsule there's about 1,000 milligrams of omega-3, and it's purified. So it's essentially the same thing as Leveza, pharmaceutical-grade Leveza, except it's 1/10 the cost. So I literally take care of a lot of my patients from the standpoint of their degenerative arthritis and the resultant leg or arm pain with high-dose omega-3s. And what I'll do is I'll taper off the pharmaceutical-grade anti-inflammatory, the prescription anti-inflammatory, and I'll usually just tell them, I want you to stay lifelong on omega-3 fatty acids as well as low-dose aspirin, and that's something that's controversial. Okay, as far as the aspirin usage, but typically it's very, very well tolerated, and I usually don't have any issues whatsoever keeping patients on lifelong aspirin, independent of their age. So I'm very, very quick to start aspirin, even in young individuals, even in their 30s. Even though the media will say, oh, it's bad, it causes this side effect and this side effect. It typically doesn't. If you use an enteric-coated aspirin, it's very, very well tolerated. So the combination of those two things I use a lot. And let me just say one more thing. I know it's a long-winded answer. The recommended dose, and I have a very, very good slide in my anti-aging lecture. The recommended dose of omega-3s is about 2.5 grams, which is why in the book I say stick with between 3 and 5 grams, because the American diet. They did a big study, and they said that in order to combat the amount of omega-6 that's in our diet, and I think that, quite frankly, I think it's understated, we need 2.5 grams of omega-3 in order to combat the omega-6s that we're getting in our diet. I think that we eat a lot more omega-6 than omega-3, and I think that study sort of understates it. But we aim for a ratio of 1 to 2, okay, omega-3 to omega-6, okay, and also keep in mind that the typical American diet is 1 to 20. Okay, so we are eating about 10 times the amount of omega-6 that we should be eating at this point, which is one of the reasons why degenerative diseases, again, such as diabetes, cancer, cerebrovascular disease, coronary artery disease, is rampant in this country. And if you look at it, the incidence of these diseases in Japan, for example, or recently Monaco in the south of France has sort of come to the forefront because their average life expectancy is now 90 years of age. And the reason why one of the reasons why is because they follow the Mediterranean diet, which is laden with omega-3s as opposed to omega-6. They eat a lot of fish, and they also eat the very protective omega-9, which also serves anti-inflammatory sort of protective roles in the body. So omega-3s and omega-9s minimize the omega-6 because you're getting enough from the garbage that we eat. Okay, so that would be the take-home message.
I agree completely. I was going to say the same exact thing. Thank you for saying that.
Sorry.
Did you understand anything you just said?
Yeah, I know what omega-3s are. And omega-3.
I mean, he's saying, like, avoid 6s, eat 3s and 9s. So if I was going to lecture you on that, what would you not be eating then?
French fries, right? Anything fried with bad oil.
Yeah,
and that includes sweet potato fries. I found that out. I was thinking sweet potato fries didn't, that didn't
count.
I mean, honestly, that was an amazing answer.
Right, so Scott, if I could just interrupt just for 1 second. French fries, and this is also in the lecture, one of the lectures. French fries are literally baked in what's called arachidonic acid. It's a fancy name for an inflammatory eicosanoid, okay, which is a group of chemicals, as I said, chemical mediators in the body, and basically that the data suggests that if you're going to eat either French fries or the Big Mac, go with the Big Mac, okay, because there's less, much less omega-6 fatty acid, in the Big Mac than there is in the French fries. The French fries are literally cooked in omega-6. They are the worst possible things for you.
What if you use coconut oil at home and you make your own fries, potato fries? How does that work? Is that better?
It's still fried.
Am I better?
You're still denaturing the carbohydrate.
Darn it. At some point, I'm going to get my sweet potato fries.
Okay, so real quick, I want to just piggyback on that question. I want Dr. Farber, who called back up. Thank you for calling back up. So real quick to everybody who's not watching us or hasn't been watching us, and I'm sure most of you have, and the people that watch us in the background, Dr. Farber is a very, very renowned cancer guy, doctor in the Northeast, and I wanted to maybe ask him, for a lot of his patients, like when they come to you, Dr. Farber, and they ask you, Doc, I get all confused about fats. What do you normally tell them as far as the type of fats that they should avoid versus what they shouldn't avoid?
Well, I don't usually give the answers that Brett gives, although they're the right answers. I have to look at every patient that they don't really know anything beyond the basic. And in fact, most of them don't even know the basics. So it's very common sense. In fact, Jay, my daughter was actually the one texting the answers, and she was saying no potato chips.
Beautiful and smart. You see?
This is our new puppy, by the way, who's mauling me while we're talking. So it is very commonsensical, right? There are good fats, there are bad fats. We should stay away from the obvious. People don't eat French fries, don't eat Big Macs, don't eat potato chips. There are good fatty acids.
No.
And you're on the way. And there are fatty acids that we can get from good sources. So if you don't know, this is a great place to find out information. Essential fatty acids that you can buy, like Udo's. There are good oils. There's coconut oil is a good source. There is, a bunch of other different ones. And Jay, you should put it on your website. And my daughter is texting me Big Mac with a thumbs down. Right, so start with some of the basic stuff. Look at what fast foods contain. Steer away from fast foods. And if you want to add in good fats, you can certainly get a list. Avocado is a good fat. If you need oil, go to a clean olive oil, coconut oil. You're going to stay away from Wesson cooking oil. And these things sound very basic, but sometimes patients don't know anything.
No, they don't. No, nutrition is, most people in the United States know nothing about nutrition. I mean, you find, and Dr. Osborne, I know you can add to this, but I mean, molecularly, they're seeing stuff now at a level that they didn't see 10 years ago, and then 20 years ago they couldn't comprehend what they can see now. So, I mean, we're really rewriting, dietetics as we go because they don't really understand what happens, at a really molecular level like they can or they're learning. The only other thing I wanted to add real quick before we jump into the last topic and then we'll do some questions is I personally think that most people get confused about fats from a standpoint of they don't understand that there's fat in the meats. There's obviously, even in the leanest meats like chicken and poultry, fish, not meat because obviously it's not a meat, it's a fish, but turkey and stuff like that. There's always fat in meat, and the less fat, it can get complex. I don't want to confuse anybody because I don't want to start making people think about low carb diets and average carb diets and isocaloric and all that stuff. But you are getting fat when you eat meat. Okay. Now, if you eat a ribeye as a form of steak or red meat versus a fillet, the ribeye is marbled and laden with more fat than, say, a fillet is. So I think people have to understand that when they eat meat, they are getting some fat. And I think where a lot of people get confused is they don't count the fat that's actually in the meat, the animal protein that they eat. When they're combining their calories and counting their calories and doing whatever in their diets, regardless of how they are. So I think that was just the only thing I really wanted to point home.
Good job, Jay.
You want to add anything to that, Dr. Osborne?
No, I don't. Because I'll end up going off on a tangent. With regard to these carbohydrate diets versus these high carbohydrates diets. I just want to say one thing. Meat, okay, lean red meat, okay. There's really nothing wrong intermittently with eating lean red meat. I mean, the concern always is about these quote unquote saturated fats that are within the red meat. But, and this is a big but, if you're eating these lean red meats in the absence of simple carbohydrates, okay, these lean red meats are okay, okay? They're not going to cause problems. What ends up causing problems is when you combine a lean red meat, okay, with something like a carbohydrate like a potato. And then you start getting yourself into potentially trouble. Okay, but as an example, bodybuilders during their diet phase, so the pre-contest phase, will routinely eat pounds, okay, of lean red meat daily, pounds, okay, because they combine it with a very, very low glycemic index carbohydrate, such as broccoli or something like that,
Right.
and they're not going to suffer any of the untoward effects that are typically associated with eating quote-unquote red meat. So yes, Jay, I agree with everything that you're saying. There is fat, okay, in these lean red meats, and they were thought to have very, very, very sinister effects on the body. But in actuality, if eaten in isolation,
Right.
there's nothing wrong with having intermittently a lean piece of red meat. That's perfectly fine. But
Right.
you know, these things, they by virtue of their fat content, they do have some of the pieces of meat, depending upon what you're eating, can expose the body to a fairly high caloric loads. But remember, it's not so much the caloric load that we're concerned about as it is the insulin
Right.
response of what you're putting into your body. So how much insulin is generated by virtue of what you're eating, okay?
Right.
And a piece of lean red meat in isolation, or even with some broccoli, it's not going to expose you to a lot of insulin, which means there's not going to be a lot of, you know, you're still going to stay fat burning, okay, so to speak, or lipolytic, okay?
Right.
That's perfectly okay if you're on an Atkins diet to have a lean piece of red meat with a low glycemic index carbohydrate, period.
Right. I think where people get confused, that's a great point. And just to add on, I think to what Dr. Osborne just said, so Scott, if you go to a steakhouse and you have a really nice cut of filet or a prime rib or even a ribeye, and you combine it with asparagus or broccoli, you're fine, right? But if you add in a baked potato loaded with sour cream and butter to that mix, then as Dr. Osborne just said, you've created an inflammatory response, because now your body is going to create a bunch of insulin. It's going to be in combination with the protein and the other fat that you just ate with the potato and all the stuff mixed in, and now you're sending bad signals to your body.
Scott, that's also known as no bueno.
Right.
Yeah, no, I've got it. I mean, I'm.
But I think the take home is when you go out to eat, okay, if you want to stay fat burning, you know, Dr. Osborne, very apt quote, in isolation, eating protein, you know, lean red meat, you know, semi lean red meat, and a green, like a salad with maybe some salad oil on it, you know, virgin oil on it or something, or even broccoli or asparagus, something green and red meat is fine. Okay, you're going to stay lipolytic. You're going to stay in a position where you're not putting a lot of undue stress and creating inflammation from insulin.
Yeah, I agree.
And just one more point, the same thing holds true for fruit. You know, if you're going to want to get your fruit in, and you know, there are different modes of training, right? If whether you're pre-contest or whether you're leaning out or whether you're maintaining, I like to eat my fruit in total isolation. So
Right.
no protein, no fat, no other carbs along with it, and that's it. And I try to separate it out by about an hour and a half. Again, it's all about insulin release.
Right.
And the other thing to point out is for people who just, the lay person who's tuning in and says, I want to lose weight, the whole non-fat craze did not work out, okay? People said, I need to eat non-fat, and they bought non-fat products, and what they were getting were high carbohydrate foods that were processed, synthetic. It was the complete wrong approach to go. So you need to learn, people need to learn that foods are laden with fat. There are different levels of fat, red meat versus, lean meat versus fatty meat, and we're touching upon it now, and there are all these other sources to learn more, and even the website will teach people more. But you know, when you start at the basics, you need to get a foundation. We just don't want people overwhelmed with what they need to learn. And I learned a lot of this within the last year. Most of this is not taught in med school or the 18 years after residency. And you know, mainstream medicine was really off in terms of understanding nutrition.
Right. They still are.
It still is. So Brett and I are not mainstream, I guess, in that regard. I think of it more of like we're integrating all the worlds together. But we learned this is a process, and I think people need to know that at any level, whether you're starting out or whether you're a competitive bodybuilder, there's something to learn. And in this show, I always learn from Brett, and then I say, oh man, I probably knew that at one point, and it's good that this is like a refresher course for me. But at every level, you can learn something here, whether you're training pre-contest or whether you're just joining on.
Well, I agree. Answers are great. I still see you back there, Ray. I'm going to get to you. So really the last topic, Scott, and then we'll take, if we can, maybe a couple minutes after, we'll take some questions. The last question is about protein bars, or bullet point is about protein bars and the role that they play. I mean, I'm sure all of us know people that will ask us, invariably or intermittently, oh, can you recommend a good protein bar to me, or blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to let the doctors talk about it, and Ray, I want you to talk about frog fuel. But my only take on protein bars are I still tell people that if preferable, and obviously we all have busy lives, and all this stuff sometimes comes down to a matter of convenience, but I prefer food over protein bars. But with that said, if I can't eat a meal, if I can't get a wholesome, food source, hopefully, something organic or something like that I prepared out of my house, it's definitely better to eat a decent protein bar than it is to grab fast food. Okay?
Especially at the airport.
Right. So, with that said, let's jump in, Dr. Osborne, real quick. What are your take on protein bars?
Hang on one second, guys. I'm trying to get a better connection here because it's really, really bad. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Perfect.
Yeah, I can see you too.
Perfect.
Yep. It's really bad, my connection on this side, so I'm just going to tell you what I think about protein bars in general. You have to be very, very, very conscientious of what is going into your body. I agree wholeheartedly, Jay, with what you said. It's always best to get your macronutrients from food as opposed to processed protein bars. That said, there are protein bars that are better than others, and you need to be very, very aware of what's in a particular protein bar. I mean, let's face it, everybody wants something that tastes good. I've been doing this for years, just like you guys have, and I've been eating protein bars for 30 years, for better or for worse. I've seen a lot of iterations of protein bars come, go. You have to be really, really, really aware of what's going into your body. A lot of these protein bars are made to taste better, okay, by virtue of them being infused with fat, okay, because we like the taste of fat. So if you look at some of these protein bars, I was just taking a look at some actually today because I was racing home to get a workout in, and I usually will try to get home and get a little bit of food into me before the workout, and sometimes that takes the form of a protein bar. And you will find some of these protein bars that are not only laden with sugar, but they're also laden with these pro-inflammatory fats, saturated fats, the polyunsaturated fats, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to be very, very aware of the sugar content and the fat content of these protein bars. I mean, everybody's trying to push the protein up, get 25, 30 grams of protein per bar. That's fine, but pay particular attention to the other macronutrients, namely the sugar content of the bars, as well as the fat content of the bars. You have to be extremely careful. If you want to err on the side of caution and you're trying to shed body fat, I would stick to one of the low glycemic index bars, okay, which it may have 15 or 20 grams of protein, so it may not be the 30 gram of proteins, and it's not going to taste great because there's no sugar and there's no fat. I will tell you that as a general rule, if your protein bar tastes too good, you're eating a Snickers bar.
Absolutely.
Okay? So
absolutely. All Quest bars. Quest bars or candy bars.
Yep.
No doubt about it.
They're so good.
Right. Right, you have to be really, really careful. You just can't assume, like a lot of people do, oh, that's a protein bar, that's automatically good for you. No, that's not true. Okay, right. It's just that I think that the companies assume that the majority of people are dumb and not aware of what's going on, and they'll sort of become they're happy and satisfied with the fact that they are eating a protein bar, when in fact that protein bar is no better than a Snickers. Okay, right. So you have to be really, really careful of what's in your protein bars. Look, and listen, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Right. Everybody is jumping on the bandwagon and trying to get out the latest and greatest protein bars. But you know what? There are no secrets. If it tastes too good, okay, it probably is bad for you. Okay, and that's just the bottom line with these protein bars. So use that as a general rule. Okay. But pay very, very close attention to the labels, please.
That's a great answer. I can't say anything different. The only thing I would add to that, he's 100% beyond right, because I know the guy that owns, I won't name his name, but I know the guy that actually owns Quest Performance and all that stuff, and he's being sued right now behind the scenes in a massive class action lawsuit because the label claims are BS. I mean, so exactly what Dr. Osborne just said. It's literally like eating a candy bar, and guess what? Snickers is a whole lot cheaper than a Quest bar is. So if you're going to eat a Quest bar, you might as well start loading up on Snickers and buy boxes of them.
Wait, are you saying Snickers bar is not a protein bar?
I have a question for you guys, just real quick. Do you have a protein bar that you prefer? Like, I mean.
Yeah, hold on. Let Ray talk about Frog Performance.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ray.
Go ahead, Ray.
Well,
Ray, are you still there?
I am here. Can you hear me? No, I'm listening. I'm actually taking my notes, guys. That's what I'm doing. Sorry. I am not a big fan of power bars myself. I look for, and before I break into the whole breakdown of Frog Fuel, you know, I use things that my brothers would use. You know, Frog Fuel is a liquid protein. They have a pre-workout and a post-workout recovery. I'm a big fan of it, and you know, it has. I'm trying to think what it's pre-digested. It has collagen in it, which I know improves muscle and skin tone, increased joint mobility, and reduced pain. You know, I try to look at things that are going to help me, not just in a lifting aspect, but I look for things that are going to help me.
Does it taste good?
You know, it has a unique taste. It has a very unique taste, but it's not bad. And I'll tell you, the test in our house is Mama Bear has to approve it, and
right.
It's different. You know, it's not. It's one of those things that's. It's like when you have the sore at the top of your mouth, you have to have more.
Is it like a wheatgrass shot? Is it like a wheatgrass shot?
Listen, to be honest with you, if it doesn't taste great, then that means it's good for your body. Let's just be honest. I mean, you know, nobody wants to
No, but tequila tastes like crap, and it's not good for your body.
Yeah,
it says on the website delicious berry flavor. Ray, what's going on with that?
It's delicious, unique berry flavor. I'll
it's
give
all
you
about perspective, Scott.
You know, and Jeff and Alex are two former teammates, and I've worked with Jeff overseas in hostile environments for about 10 years, and his goal was to make something for the guy on the go. You know, I was actually traveling in Afghanistan using this stuff, you know, having some protein, having some liquid, because when you're carrying a 150-pound ruck, the last thing you want to do is put a power bar in there that weighs a half an ounce more than a gel pack, because every single ounce counts when you're you know, when you're an 8,000-foot elevation. So it's something that I use. I don't use a lot of supplements, only the things that are discussed here. But I'm always trying to better myself. So, like I said, I'm a big fan of the component of it. I like the way it works and what it does for me. But again, I'm not an advertiser. I'm not a seller. It's what I work. But I agree with Jay. I don't like power bars, and the power bars that I do like taste awesome. And then when I read the back of them, I almost have a heart attack because, like the other doc said, I might as well be eating a Snickers bar, because if you take them side by side, the Snickers bar is better for me. And, you know, all they seem to do is take a bar of sugar and this and that, and they put healthy on it, and everybody buys it.
Good answer. Good answer. Okay, real quick, Scott,
Thank
you got a couple minutes. Can we go over?
Yeah, we got a quick question. Have you ever heard of Dr. Mercola's whey bars? I would be interested in your opinion on them.
I mean, Doc, I'll let you answer. I mean, we know who Dr. Mercola is. I mean, I've never heard of his bars. Do you know anything about him, Doc?
I don't. I mean, I know who he is, but I don't know. It's probably some sort of a low glycemic index bar. I mean, I know the way he you know, he thinks, and he thinks, you know, similar to, you know, to all of us basically. So he's not going to put a lot of a simple carbohydrate into any of the bars that he, because he's a sort of a low carbohydrate guy.
Right.
And you know, quite frankly, as we had said, the only time that you are really going to essentially pound these simple carbohydrates into your body is post workout. Okay, when you want to have a surge in insulin, because that's going to generate the reparative response and the anabolic response. So aside from that, if you're going about your day and you want to get a protein bar into you, I would recommend, just because you can't eat, you don't have time or whatever it is, you're on the go, I would recommend any of these low glycemic index bars, and my guess is that it probably falls into that category. So probably not a lot of simple sugars. And I can't tell you.
It's got 6 grams of sugar.
Yeah, exactly. I can't tell you. And there's another low glycemic index bar. I forget what it's called. It's called something like that. And these things do exist. The Atkins bar is a low glycemic index bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all sort of the same stuff. So if your goal is to keep your insulin levels down, okay, in the context of weight loss, or even just maintaining a low level of body fat, you want to stay with these low glycemic index bars. And I can't tell you that one necessarily is better than the other. I mean, I don't know the intricacies of the manufacturing process, but they're all based upon the same principle, obviously.
Right, so that's a great answer. It actually segue. Scott, let's take 5 minutes if you're okay, and then we'll knock out these questions. There's only 4 of them. They should be pretty simple. The first questions, they're all for Dr. Osborne. I mean, honestly, I have 20 questions, but most of these things that we've answered. So number 3, this guy's question is, Dr. Osborne, what are your thoughts on proteolytic enzymes for inflammation? Sorry.
Right, I don't know much about them. My friend who's actually a chiropractor, is fairly well versed in enzyme therapy, but I don't know really much about the science. I mean, if you go to any of the anti-aging seminars or conferences, they do talk about augmenting for patients that have GI issues and have issues with malabsorption. They always talk about using proteolytic enzymes, but in the context of as an anti-inflammatory unto themselves, I'm unaware of any of the data. Quite frankly, I have no idea.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I have no clue either. Another question, definitely for you too, and this will be a good one. Take some time maybe to answer it. Jay, I've been using Dr. Osborne's workout ever since you posted it. Now I'm on my 6th week. I think it's absolutely amazing. I'm a 22-year bodybuilder. I used to compete. I was never a pro, but I competed at a high level. I never got my pro card. I'm no longer a bodybuilder. I'm 47 years old. My questions are for Dr. Osborne. What kind of weight adjustments have you and do you think I should make in order to accommodate the rigors of Dr. Osborne's 5x5 set and rep scheme? Previous to working out this way, I have been kind of an HIT guy and a rest pause guy where I would do 1 or 2 sets and then do drop sets with them. So have you had to lighten up in order to pace yourself to compete the workout, and if so, by what percentage?
Yeah, that's a good question. And as I said in the book, what you need to do is, and I did HIT type training for many years,
right.
15 years. We've all done it. Okay, I've tried everything just like you guys have, and I will tell you that what you need to do is, in order to generate sort of a sort of momentum, and in order to have successes, continued successes with this program, which incorporates basically all of the big anabolic 5 movements: squat, deadlift, overhead press, bench press, and a pull-up. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the protocol, I usually say get a running start. So that means back off. Okay. Estimate what you believe that you can do, say as an example for 5x5 in the bench press, and go 10 or 15% lighter. That way you're going to complete every week. You're going to complete, and you sort of have enough momentum and success and a successful mindset going into the later weeks, so to speak, and you're going to hopefully push through those previous barriers. So just back off, start slowly. Don't worry about the fact that you can't have a bench press like Ray, who bench presses 400 pounds. Okay, forget about that. Okay, it's not about that. Okay, it's just about safety. It's about health. It's about making progression. Go very, very slowly. Underestimate. Okay, in the beginning. So do not assume that you're going to be able to do bench 250 5x5 because you can lift heavy loads during a high, on a Nautilus machine during a high intensity set. Don't assume that. Okay, start anew. Okay, and just really, really, really go light in the beginning and work your way up, generate the momentum, and then you're going to have the successful mindset and the confidence to break through previous barriers. So that would be my answer. There's no set percentage, okay? Don't start maxing out and then backing off and going to 87% and using that as your 5x5 number. That's a bad idea. My suggestion to you is you just experiment. Know that you're going to be able to get through the initial couple of weeks, 4, 6, 8 weeks with ease, and then start working your way, and you will ultimately find, okay, the weight which is challenging to you. Okay, so in the beginning, just forget about the weight. Okay, and actually forever forget about the weight. Just make progress. That's all. Record everything, but start slowly. Avoid injury.
Great answer, Scott. We're gonna do the next show. We're gonna do a lot of. We're gonna break down the workout for everybody out there. This is the last question, though. It might take you a couple minutes to answer it. It's a good question. It says, "Hey Jay, I've always eaten pretty clean, but I didn't really know how to maximize my diet and my supplementation. And also, I'm on testosterone replacement therapy with a doctor until I found Fat Fit Over 40 and Dr. Osborne's book, Get Serious. I think the book has completely changed my mindset, and it's much clearer now. And I see the world actually in a totally different light. I see the toxic effects of excess sugar and fat intake everywhere and the health consequences that go with it. I live in the Midwest, and all I can tell you is, wow. These substances, however, are socially accepted and as bad as most legal and illegal drugs out there on human health. What is your take on this?"
Right. Well, you know, we're guilty of all abusing a drug in this country, and that drug, which is as bad as any other drug, although it's not portrayed as same, is sugar.
Right.
Okay? We're all addicted to it. Okay, that's just the bottom line. Some of us less so than or more so than others. Okay, in the Midwest, and I did live in West Virginia which is not quite the Midwest, but it's sort of their eating habits are parallel those of the Midwest. Huntington, West Virginia, was deemed the most unhealthy city in the entire nation. Jamie Oliver, we're all well aware of who he is, you know, this famous TV chef, blah, 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 actually came to Huntington to take a look at what was being fed to these individuals, the students in schools. They were having, for breakfast, I don't know how they were getting breakfast at school, but they were getting breakfast, they were having pizza.
I believe it. Yeah.
This is just, and you look around there and you wonder why surgeons, we did extremely well there because the health burden was so significant. So for a young surgeon like myself, it was just it was literally a free-for-all. There was so much pathology there because these individuals were literally killing themselves. Right. They were killing themselves, and it's a cultural thing. It is ingrained in there from the time that these individuals are born. You see the bad eating habits. They start and they never cease to exist. There are very, very few gyms in Huntington, West Virginia, and there are fast food places on every corner. Okay, everybody there is obese. They are enormous people for the most part, and it's really sad. And it's a cultural issue, and it's just due to, I think, lack of proper education in the context of nutrition. So yes, sugar. Okay, these simple carbohydrates are our own worst enemy. Okay, these are worse than any of the drugs. Okay, that are portrayed as being these horrible substances. Well, everybody needs to sort of take a look at what they're putting into their body, because sugar is probably the most harmful of anything else.
Right. Well said. Well said. I think that's about it. Scott, did you want to add anything?
No, I mean, this has been awesome. It's amazing.
Yeah, honestly, this has been an amazing show. I really thanks for everybody calling up. Ray, thank you for calling up. Of course, Dr. Osborne. I'll just throw a couple things in there real quick. We just put up a blog this week, a couple days ago, about Dr. Osborne and Fat Fit Over 40 and Ray and all the things that we're going to be doing the rest of the year. It's got a kind of a schedule. It also talks a little bit about our SOAR seminars. I definitely encourage everybody to find out more about our SOAR seminar. And then one quick shameless plug, the testosterone replacement therapy book is going to be available probably by the end of the month. It should definitely be available. It's going to be, we're giving it away for free. You're going to have to pay a small shipping fee and also a printing fee if you want the bound book, but if you want to just download it as a really nice PDF from the web, it's going to be free. So there'll be plenty more on the blog, and we'll probably talk about it on the next Hangout in 2 weeks. Other than that, it's been an awesome show. I appreciate everybody calling up.
Thank you, guys, very, very much. Nice job, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Doc.